She thought I was only a mechanic until the truth came out, and it was already too late. Hovercars zoomed above the streets in neat lanes of glowing paths, and drones zipped through the air like mechanical birds. The skyline shimmered with neon, but down at street level, the city had a quieter rhythm. Hidden between the towering skyscrapers was a small, almost unnoticed workshop called Calder's Repairs. Ethan Calder liked it that way. The sign above the door was simple, a brass plaque with letters slightly faded by time. Inside, tools hung neatly on walls, and machines of all kinds sat on workbenches. Hovercar engines, drone rotors, and even personal energy shields were carefully arranged, each waiting for Ethan's attention. The smell of oil and metal filled the room, comforting him. Ethan was a mechanic, everyone thought. A good one, yes, but still just a mechanic. Most of his customers came and went without much conversation, leaving him to work in peace. To them, he was nothing more than a man with skilled hands, but Ethan knew more than most realized. He had spent years studying technology, observing patterns, and thinking about problems in ways that even the city's engineers wouldn't. Yet he kept it hidden. He liked the quiet, the simplicity, the sense of control over his small space in a chaotic world. This morning, like most, began with a soft hum of engines from the street outside. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag as a familiar chime rang from the workshop's entrance. "Morning, Ethan," called Lyra Venn, stepping in with a small hover drone in her arms. Lyra was young, energetic, and brilliant, an inventor whose ideas often sparked curiosity and sometimes confusion among the city's authorities. Her gadgets were always slightly ahead of their time, and they often needed repairs that only someone with Ethan's skill could handle. "Morning, Lyra," Ethan replied, smiling faintly. "Trouble with this one again?" Lyra set the drone on the bench. "It's acting weird. I swear I followed the manual exactly." She shrugged, her brown hair bouncing as she leaned over. "I thought maybe it's just one of those days, but then it started floating backward instead of forward." Ethan inspected the drone, his fingers moving deftly over the smooth surfaces. He ran a quick diagnostic with his portable scanner, and the drone's lights blinked in response. "Looks like a minor wiring issue," he said, adjusting a small connector. "Someone probably swapped a line by accident, nothing serious." Lyra's eyes widened. "You fixed it already?" Ethan nodded, handing the drone back. "All done. You should test it outside, but it'll fly straight now." Lyra laughed, the sound bright in the workshop. "You make it look so easy. Sometimes I wonder if you're just lucky or, well, I don't know." Ethan smiled but didn't answer. He preferred to keep the mystery. As Lyra left, Ethan glanced around his workshop. He enjoyed the simplicity, yet he always felt a small itch of awareness, a sense that something larger was always happening beyond his doors. The city moved in predictable ways, but sometimes, just sometimes, he noticed patterns that others missed. It was why he had chosen to live quietly here. He could observe, learn, and wait for the right moment without being distracted by unnecessary attention. By mid-afternoon, the city seemed to hum louder. Ethan had just finished a repair on a hovercar engine when a notification blinked on his private console. It wasn't a normal city alert. The system reported unusual activity, several drones malfunctioning in different sectors, minor power disruptions, and strange interference in communication arrays. Ethan frowned. He had seen small glitches before, but this was different. The pattern wasn't random. It had a rhythm, a logic. He tapped his fingers on the console, running simulations quietly. If the interference continued, it could affect the city's central grid in less than a day. A soft knock at the door broke his concentration. He looked up to see a uniformed security officer standing hesitantly outside. "Mr. Calder, sorry to bother you," the officer said. "We've had some strange reports today, and well, we thought you might know something. You've handled tech like this before, haven't you?" Ethan studied the officer. Most people thought of him as a mechanic, but his calm and precise observations often gave him an edge in situations like this. "I'll take a look," he said simply. Once the officer left, Ethan connected his workshop systems to the city's network. Streams of data flowed before him, power grids, communication arrays, and drone traffic. He traced the source of the disturbances, noting a subtle signal interference pattern. His eyes narrowed. Someone or something was testing the city's defenses. By evening, the streets outside shimmered under neon lights as citizens returned home. Ethan worked silently, adjusting systems, rerouting minor glitches, and observing. He didn't alarm anyone. There was no need yet. Later, the bell above the workshop chimed again. This time it was Lyra. A delivery drone hovered outside, lowering a small, sealed crate. Ethan opened it carefully. Inside were tools and parts he had never seen before, of a design unfamiliar even in Nova Terra. He tapped a sequence on his console, running a detailed analysis. The materials were advanced, almost alien in origin. Ethan's mind raced. Whoever sent this knew he was capable of handling such tech, and they expected him to notice. The next morning, Lyra returned. She carried another one of her gadgets, a sleek device shaped like a small globe. "Morning, Ethan. I need your help again, but this one, well, it's different." She placed it on the bench, looking a little anxious. Ethan nodded, eyes scanning the device. "It's a communication interface, but it's unlike anything I've seen before. Let me check it." As he worked, Lyra watched silently. Her admiration for Ethan had always been quiet, subtle, but today it felt heavier. There was something about the way he handled technology, the way he predicted issues before they happened, that didn't fit her understanding of a simple mechanic. Hours passed, and the device hummed under Ethan's care. He aligned circuits, calibrated sensors, and finally connected it to the console. A soft, blue light pulsed rhythmically. "There," Ethan said, stepping back. "It's functional now, but this design is sophisticated. Someone didn't make this for casual use." Lyra's eyes widened. "You mean it's dangerous?" Ethan shook his head. "Not dangerous yet, but it's definitely part of something larger. Someone is testing systems, possibly the entire city." Lyra bit her lip. "The authorities didn't notice." "They noticed minor glitches," Ethan replied, "but they won't see the pattern until it's too late. That's why I'm keeping track quietly." Lyra studied him, finally realizing what she had always sensed. Ethan's knowledge went far beyond mechanics. He had a mind capable of understanding systems, predicting outcomes, and solving problems that most couldn't even recognize. As the sun set over Nova Terra, Ethan leaned back in his chair, eyes scanning the city skyline. From his small workshop, he could see the entire city moving like a living organism. And in that movement, he noticed small irregularities, tiny hints that something was coming. Something that would challenge not just his skills as a mechanic, but his intelligence, his patience, and the very limits of human ingenuity. He looked at the city and smiled faintly. The quiet life he loved so much would soon change, and he was ready. For now, though, he returned to his workbench, hands deftly adjusting circuits, repairing a simple drone, and enjoying the calm before the storm. To everyone else, Ethan Calder was just a mechanic. But in the heart of Nova Terra, he was much more than that, and soon the truth would come out. The next morning, Nova Terra woke to a strange hum. Hovercars moved sluggishly above the city, and drones that usually zipped with precision now wavered in the air, sometimes drifting sideways or hovering too high. Citizens frowned, wondering if the morning power surge had caused minor malfunctions. But Ethan Calder, working quietly in his workshop, knew it was something more. He had already traced small irregularities in the city's systems yesterday, but now the patterns had grown bolder. Drones across multiple districts were acting strangely, communication arrays flickered, and even the city's automated transport system experienced brief halts. It wasn't random. Someone, or something, was testing the city's defenses. Lyra Venn arrived just as Ethan was running a diagnostic. She carried her new invention, a small, spherical drone designed to map energy flows in the city. "Ethan," she called, excitement and concern mixing in her voice. "Something is really wrong. My mapping drone can't even complete a route without spinning in circles. I think it's more than a glitch." Ethan nodded, not looking up from his console. "I agree. These disturbances aren't natural. Someone is interfering with Nova Terra's systems. And it's organized, not random." Lyra's eyes widened. "Organized? You mean someone is doing this on purpose?" "Yes," Ethan said calmly, "and whoever it is knows exactly how our technology works. They're probing for weaknesses." Lyra frowned, biting her lip. "But why? Who would want to do this? And why wouldn't the authorities notice sooner?" Ethan tapped a few keys, pulling up data streams from across the city. Patterns of interference appeared like glowing lines on a map. "They will notice eventually. But right now they see only small glitches, minor problems. The real plan hasn't begun yet. Whoever this is, they're testing, waiting for the right moment." Lyra took a deep breath. "So what do we do?" Ethan leaned back, thinking. "We watch, analyze, and prepare. If we act too soon, we risk alerting them, but if we wait too long, it could be worse. We need information, every detail. For the rest of the morning, they worked quietly. Ethan set up sensors throughout the workshop and tapped into city data feeds. Lyra's drone scanned power grids, communication arrays, and traffic hubs, mapping interference zones. Together, they created a digital map of disruptions, tracing patterns like detectives solving a mystery. By noon, Ethan noticed something alarming. The interference wasn't random. It moved. It shifted from sector to sector, testing not just drones or traffic systems, but the city's automated defenses. Someone was studying human responses, predicting how citizens and machines would react. "This is bigger than I thought," Ethan murmured. "They're learning from us, Lyra. Every malfunction teaches them something," Lyra gasped. "So they're preparing for something, but what?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't know yet, but we need to be ready, and we need help." The first human help came unexpectedly. Mid-afternoon, a small group of engineers and former city technicians arrived at Calder's repairs. They had worked in Nova Terra's security and technology departments and had trusted Ethan for years, even if the public didn't know it. "Ethan," said Mara Lynn, one of the lead engineers, "we've been tracking strange energy readings across the city. They're unusual, almost alien. And then we heard about your observations. We think you're the only one who can help us understand this." Ethan nodded, greeting each of them with calm assurance. "You're right. The disruptions are sophisticated, more advanced than ordinary systems can handle. We need to work together and map everything." Over the next few hours, the workshop transformed into a command center. Holographic displays projected the city in 3D, showing power flows, traffic patterns, and drone activity. Lines of interference pulsed across the map like glowing veins. Each pulse told a story. Someone was learning, testing, and preparing. Lyra leaned over the console. "It's like they're watching us, studying us," Ethan nodded. "Exactly, but humans have something they don't: intuition, creativity, and adaptability. They can predict patterns, but we can improvise. That's our advantage." By evening, the first serious disruption struck. A major energy relay in the northern sector flickered and failed temporarily. The city experienced rolling blackouts in several districts. Hovercars slowed, and drones fell from the sky, though most were quickly recovered. Citizens panicked for a moment before automated systems restored partial function. Lyra watched Ethan quietly. "You're calm," she said. "Why aren't you panicking?" Ethan's eyes scanned the city map. "Because this is exactly what I expected. The failures aren't dangerous yet. They're tests, and we're learning from them. That's the difference. We see the patterns, and we can plan." Lyra nodded slowly, beginning to understand. Ethan wasn't just a mechanic. He was a strategist, observing not just machines, but the city, its systems, and the people within it. As night fell, Nova Terra glowed under neon lights, but Ethan couldn't sleep. He continued working, analyzing every failure, tracing every anomaly. Somewhere in the city, someone was trying to outsmart humans, and humans he knew could be brilliant in ways no machine could predict. Suddenly, his console blinked with an alert. A small message scrolled across the display: "Pattern detected. Origin unknown." Ethan's fingers moved swiftly, isolating the signal. It wasn't just from one source. Multiple points of interference blinked across the city. Someone or some group was coordinating these disruptions with precision. Lyra leaned closer. "So, it's not just random." "No," Ethan said quietly. "They're organized. They're studying our responses to learn our weaknesses, but we have an advantage they don't understand. We can think creatively. We can work together. That's what will make the difference." He paused, eyes scanning the city in the hologram. "And they don't know who they're dealing with yet. Not really." Over the next 2 days, small disruptions continued. Hovercars malfunctioned in midair, drones twirled like spinning tops, and city lights flickered unpredictably. Citizens began to murmur, unsure if these were normal malfunctions or something more. Meanwhile, Ethan and his team quietly mapped every disturbance, analyzed every pattern, and developed strategies for human intervention. Mara and the engineers contributed ideas from their years of experience, while Lyra provided new perspectives with her inventive thinking. During one long session, Ethan explained his thoughts to the group. "Humans have a unique ability," he said. "Machines operate on logic-predictable patterns, but humans can improvise. They can take unexpected paths and find solutions no algorithm could anticipate. That's our greatest strength, and that strength will save the city." Lyra smiled faintly. I think I understand now. It's not just your skill with machines. It's the way you think. You see the bigger picture. Ethan shrugged modestly. I've always been good at noticing details, but it's everyone here together that matters. One mind can see patterns, but many minds can outsmart any system. The team continued their work through the night, establishing communication networks, monitoring city systems, and preparing for the next phase of disruptions. Every minor failure became a lesson, every anomaly a clue. By the end of the week, the pattern was clear. The disruptions were no longer random tests. They were coordinated simulations, likely preparing for a larger event. Ethan and his team now had a detailed understanding of the enemy's tactics and a plan to counteract them. Lyra, observing Ethan at the console, finally admitted the truth she had suspected all along. "You're not just a mechanic, are you?" she asked quietly. Ethan didn't look up immediately. He continued typing, connecting new data streams. "No," he said finally. "I've never been just a mechanic. I trained for this, for situations like this. But I didn't reveal it because I wanted to live a simple life. Until now, the city didn't need me to be more." Lyra nodded, understanding. She realized that everything she had admired about him, the calmness, the precision, the uncanny skill, was part of something far greater than she had imagined. The night grew late, and the city lights flickered gently, now more peaceful as minor malfunctions were repaired. Ethan leaned back in his chair, looking at the glowing holograms of Nova Terra. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly to himself. "They're learning, yes, but they don't know how unpredictable humans can be." Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the silent war unfolding in its systems. Hovercars hummed back to life, drones resumed their patrols, and citizens went about their routines, blissfully unaware that someone was testing the limits of human ingenuity. Inside Calder's repairs, Ethan smiled faintly. The quiet life he had cherished was changing, but change was something humans thrived on. With creativity, teamwork, and determination, he knew they could face whatever challenge came next. And in the shadows of Nova Terra, someone or something was watching. But for now, humans were ready. The sun rose over Nova Terra like a golden promise, but the city's calm was deceptive. The recent disruptions had only grown bolder, and more citizens noticed the flickering lights and faltering drones. While most shrugged and assumed it was ordinary technical glitches, Ethan Calder knew better. He had spent the past week analyzing every anomaly, and the pattern was becoming undeniable. This was no ordinary failure. This was preparation. Ethan's workshop was quiet except for the soft hum of his equipment. Holographic projections floated above his workbench, showing the city in intricate detail. Each node of interference blinked in subtle patterns, and lines of energy pulsed faintly along invisible grids. The disruptions were no longer confined to drones or traffic systems. They were spreading into energy distribution networks and even communication satellites. Lyra Venn entered, carrying another one of her experimental drones. "Ethan, I've been monitoring the northern sectors all morning," she said, placing the drone on the bench. "The interference isn't just random, it's coordinated. Someone is learning how the city responds, adjusting based on our reactions." Ethan didn't look up immediately. His eyes scanned the data, tracing signals with precision. "Exactly," he said quietly. "And that means we're dealing with intelligence, not malfunction. Whoever is behind this is studying human responses." Lyra paused. "You mean they're testing humans?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. They're trying to understand our weaknesses, but they're missing something important. Humans are unpredictable. Machines and logic can anticipate patterns, but we adapt. That's our strength." Lyra frowned. "So, how do we stop them?" Ethan leaned back, fingers steepled. "First, we need to know who we're dealing with. And then we need a plan that uses what makes humans different: creativity, intuition, teamwork." For the next several hours, Ethan and Lyra worked side by side. She operated drones, mapping energy flows and interference patterns, while Ethan connected his workshop to city sensors and analyzed data streams from multiple networks. Slowly, a clearer picture emerged. The disturbances were coming from multiple points across the city, all coordinated with extreme precision. Signals suggested advanced technology, possibly alien in origin, but the design indicated a focus on observing human behavior. Each malfunction tested reactions, decision-making speed, and problem-solving abilities. Lyra's eyes widened as she absorbed the implications. So, they're not attacking yet, they're experimenting on us. Ethan nodded. Exactly. And the longer we let them, the more information they gather. We need to be ready for the moment when the tests become real. As they worked, Ethan reached for a secure channel he had kept offline for years. He contacted a small network of trusted humans, former engineers, strategists, and innovators who had been quietly observing alien activity and technological anomalies for decades. Within minutes, several familiar faces appeared on holographic screens. Mara Lin, a former city engineer, smiled faintly. Ethan, we've been monitoring unusual energy readings too. They're precise, advanced, possibly alien like you suspected. What's your assessment? Ethan explained the patterns he had traced, showing them detailed maps of the city's interference zones and sequences of anomalies. The team discussed possibilities, sharing observations and suggesting potential strategies. Each idea was carefully considered, each insight added to a growing understanding. Lyra watched silently, fascinated. The more she observed Ethan at work, the more she realized how far beyond a simple mechanic he truly was. He wasn't just repairing machines. He was orchestrating a defensive strategy, analyzing complex systems, and predicting outcomes with clarity that left no room for error. After hours of discussion, Ethan leaned back in his chair. The disruptions are sophisticated, but they're not invincible. They rely on predictable logic, pattern recognition, and data analysis. Humans are not predictable. That's our advantage. If we can anticipate their moves and act creatively, we can counter them. Mara Lin nodded. So what's the plan? Ethan's expression was calm, almost unreadable. First, we strengthen city systems and reduce points of vulnerability. Second, we continue observing them, learning what we can without alerting them. Third, we prepare to use our unpredictability. Machines and logic are precise, but humans are clever. That's what will save us. Over the next few days, Ethan and his team worked tirelessly. Nova Terra's systems were fortified using simple yet innovative adjustments that made ordinary machines respond unpredictably. Drones were reprogrammed to react to multiple inputs, hovercars received redundant control circuits, and energy networks were subtly rerouted. Every measure was designed to confuse the intruder without revealing the city's full capabilities. Lyra contributed her inventions, adding modifications to drones that allowed them to improvise flight paths and bypass interference. She marveled at Ethan's calm focus. "I never realized," she said softly, "you've been hiding all of this." "All this intelligence, all this strategy," Ethan smiled faintly. "I didn't need it to be seen. Most people only needed a mechanic, but now it matters. The city needs humans at their best." That evening, Ethan reviewed the city's defenses on his holographic map. Despite the minor disruptions that continued to appear, the systems now had subtle redundancies that made prediction difficult. He tapped a few commands, causing drones to shift in patterns that were unexpected even to their programming. Lyra leaned over, eyes wide. "It's amazing. The city doesn't even know how ready it is." Ethan nodded. "It's a quiet strength. That's the point. Humans are often underestimated, but when we act together creatively, we can accomplish incredible things." Just then, a sharp alert appeared on the console. A cluster of interference signals had converged on the eastern sector of the city. Unlike previous anomalies, this one was precise, almost aggressive. Hovercars slowed abruptly, drones tumbled, and communication networks experienced brief but significant interruptions. Ethan frowned. "They're testing a new phase." Mara Lin's face appeared on the holographic screen. "It looks like they're escalating. This could be serious." Ethan tapped his fingers on the console. "It's serious but expected, and it's also an opportunity. We can learn more about their approach by observing how they escalate. That information will help us plan our next move." Lyra's voice was quiet but firm. "I don't like waiting. Can't we act now?" Ethan looked at her, calm but resolute. "Not yet. We need to see the bigger picture. Acting too soon could reveal our strategy. And remember, the enemy is precise, but humans are clever. Patience and observation are our tools." As the team continued monitoring, Ethan uncovered a startling discovery. Embedded within the interference patterns were subtle codes, almost like messages, but not in any language he had ever seen. They repeated, shifted, and sometimes aligned with city infrastructure in ways that suggested intelligence far beyond ordinary technology. "They're communicating," Ethan murmured. Or at least sending messages, but not to us, possibly to each other or a larger network. They're coordinating. The disruptions aren't random tests, they're organized experiments. Lyra's eyes widened. So this is bigger than just the city. They're planning something and we're part of their experiment. Yes, Ethan said softly. But that also means we have a chance to respond in ways they cannot predict. Humans are creative. Humans are adaptable. That's something no machine, or even advanced intelligence, can fully understand. The following days brought more anomalies, each more intricate than the last. Drones began reacting to phantom signals, traffic grids shifted unpredictably, and communication channels experienced complex interference patterns. The team studied each event, recording reactions, testing responses, and refining city defenses. Throughout it all, Lyra's admiration for Ethan grew. She realized that his quiet demeanor, his unassuming smile, and his gentle manner had concealed a mind capable of anticipating complex systems, predicting intelligent behavior, and crafting strategies that balanced patience, precision, and creativity. Finally, one night, as the city lights shimmered under the neon glow, Ethan gathered his team. "We've learned a lot," he said, voice calm but serious. "We understand the patterns, the escalation, and the intelligence behind the disruptions. We know their methods and we know our strength. Humans can think in ways they cannot. We can improvise. We can create solutions that machines won't predict, and that's why we'll succeed." Mara Lynn nodded, determination in her eyes. "Then we're ready. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Lyra smiled, a new understanding shining in her eyes. "And now I know, you've never been just a mechanic. You've been preparing for this quietly, patiently, brilliantly." Ethan returned the smile, modest yet proud. "I've always believed in humans, in what we can do when we work together, and now the city will see that strength too." Outside, Nova Terra continued its rhythm. Drones whirring, hovercars gliding, and citizens moving through the streets, unaware of the silent challenge unfolding in their midst. But inside Calder's repairs, a small team of humans quietly prepared, ready to use creativity, adaptability, and teamwork to meet the test ahead. The hidden truth was clear. The disruptions were not merely mechanical failures, they were a challenge. And humans, with their ingenuity, would rise to meet it. As the night deepened, Ethan gazed at the city map, tracing the lines of interference, and whispered quietly, "They're testing us. But they don't know the best is yet to come." The city of Nova Terra stirred to life under a bright, artificial sun that shimmered through the glass towers. Despite the normal hum of hovercars and drones, Ethan Calder and his team knew the calm was fragile. For days, the city had experienced increasing disruptions, escalating in ways that suggested a precise, coordinated effort. Today, the challenge would reach a new level. Ethan stood in the center of his workshop, eyes scanning the holographic map of the city. Lines of interference pulsed like electric veins, branching across sectors with unnatural precision. The anomalies weren't random. They were testing human limits, probing patterns in the city's response. Lyra Venn adjusted a drone hovering nearby. "It's happening again," she said, her voice tense. "The northern and eastern sectors are flickering simultaneously. Traffic is slowed and drones are spinning out of control." Ethan nodded. "It's the next phase. They're pushing harder now. This is where human creativity will make the difference." Mara Lynn, observing the holographic map, pointed to a cluster of interference points near the energy grid. "They're focusing here," she said. "If they manage to disable this grid, half the city could go dark. But they're predictable in their logic. If we move creatively, we can block their pattern." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Exactly. We've prepared for this. Drones, energy systems, and traffic grids now have unpredictable redundancies. We'll use those to our advantage. Let's move." The team split into their stations, each monitoring a different sector of the city. Ethan took charge of the energy grid, Lyra coordinated drone activity, and Mara oversaw the transport system. For the first time, Nova Terra's defenses were coordinated by humans thinking creatively, instead of machines following preset instructions. Suddenly, the interference surged. Power grids flickered violently, hovercars slowed midair, and drones whirled in erratic patterns. Citizens looked up in concern, unsure if this was a major malfunction or something more. Ethan's fingers flew across his console. "Redirect energy flows through the secondary circuits," he commanded. "Drones adjust flight paths to random vectors." Transport grids, initiate manual reroutes. Lyra's drones responded instantly, zipping unpredictably through the skies, confusing the interference signals. Traffic grids diverted automatically, creating alternate routes that disrupted the planned pattern. Citizens barely noticed the small disruptions, unaware that the city was being defended by human ingenuity. As the interference continued, Ethan observed the patterns closely. The attackers were precise, almost perfect in their logic, but human creativity was unpredictable. Drones shifted, energy grids rerouted, and traffic systems adapted in ways no machine or advanced intelligence could have anticipated. Lyra grinned. "They don't know how to respond," she exclaimed. "Our unpredictability is working." Ethan allowed a small smile. "Humans are clever," he said. "We don't follow patterns, we improvise." The interference escalated again, more sophisticated than before. Signals attempted to manipulate drones mid-flight, energy lines were disrupted simultaneously, and communication channels flickered. But Ethan's team countered every move with creativity and precision. Mara Lynn watched the energy grid on her holographic display. "If we reroute the power through smaller nodes and introduce subtle delays, they won't be able to predict our flow," she said. "Do it," Ethan replied. Within moments, the energy network responded to her adjustments. Lights stabilized, hovercars regained speed, and drones recovered midair. Across the city, people moved through their routines without realizing they were in the midst of a battle of wits. Nova Terra systems were being tested by advanced intelligence, and humans were winning. Suddenly, an alert appeared on Ethan's console. A coordinated cluster of interference signals had converged at the city's central hub. The intensity was unlike anything they had faced before. "They're concentrating their effort," Ethan said quietly. "This is the real test." Lyra's eyes widened. "If they succeed here, the whole city could be paralyzed." Ethan shook his head. "Not if we act together." "This is where humans shine." The team focused intensely. Drones flew in coordinated chaos, creating unpredictable patterns that disrupted the interference signals. Energy flows were diverted through unconventional circuits, confusing the attackers' logic. Traffic grids rerouted vehicles in ways that machines could not anticipate. Ethan tapped into the city's communication arrays, sending synchronized pulses that mimicked the interference signals. "We're using their own logic against them," he explained. "They calculate based on patterns, but humans create new ones on the fly. That's our advantage." Lyra adjusted her drones mid-flight, weaving them in unpredictable arcs. "It's working. They can't stabilize the interference." Mara Lynn smiled at the console. "The city's systems are adapting faster than they expected. Every time they try to predict, we're one step ahead." The interference surged again, more coordinated and aggressive. But humans, with their creativity, teamwork, and intuition, countered each move. Drones shifted, power grids rerouted, and transport systems adapted in ways that no machine could calculate. Ethan's eyes scanned the holographic city map. "They're trying to overwhelm us with speed and precision," he said. "But humans are clever. We think beyond the rules." That's what makes the difference. Hours passed as the team maintained constant adjustments. Each surge of interference was met with innovative responses. Drones created unpredictable flight paths, energy grids rerouted seamlessly, and traffic systems diverted vehicles in unexpected directions. The attackers' logic failed repeatedly against human ingenuity. Finally, the interference began to diminish. The signals weakened, disrupted by the creative adaptations of Ethan and his team. Hovercars returned to normal speed, drones resumed stable flight, and communication channels stabilized. Nova Terra systems had survived the coordinated test. Lyra let out a relieved sigh. "We did it, we actually did it." Ethan nodded, eyes still scanning the holographic map. "We did more than survive, we proved something important. Humans can outthink predictable intelligence. Creativity and teamwork are strengths no machine can replicate." Mara Lynn smiled. "The city doesn't know it yet, but they owe their safety to human ingenuity." Lyra looked at Ethan, admiration shining in her eyes. "You weren't just a mechanic," she said softly. "You were preparing for this all along." Ethan allowed a small smile. "I've always believed in humans. When we work together, we can solve problems no one expects. That's what will carry us forward." As night fell, Nova Terra glittered under the neon sky, calm once more. But inside Calder's repairs, the team continued monitoring systems. ensuring no further disruptions occurred. They had faced the test and emerged stronger, proving that humans could adapt, innovate, and overcome challenges that even advanced intelligence could not predict. Ethan looked at the city map, tracing the fading interference signals. "This was just a test," he said quietly. "They've learned, yes, but humans have learned too, and we're ready for what comes next." Lyra smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "The city may never know, but we do. Humans are amazing, Ethan, and you've shown that quietly, brilliantly." Ethan nodded, modest but proud. "The best strength is often hidden, but when it matters, it shines." Outside, Nova Terra moved on, hovercars gliding through the streets, drones patrolling the skies, and citizens unaware of the intelligence that had tested them. But inside Calder's repairs, humans had shown their true power: creativity, teamwork, and ingenuity. And that power would be ready for any challenge the future might bring. The morning sun rose over Nova Terra with a calm brilliance, reflecting off the glass towers and the smooth streets below. Hovercars hummed in their lanes, and drones moved gracefully through the skies. To most citizens, it was just another ordinary day in a bustling city of technology. But inside Calder's repairs, the day held a quiet significance. Ethan Calder stood at his workbench, tools in hand, adjusting a small drone. Beside him, Lyra Venn carefully observed every movement, her eyes reflecting admiration and understanding. The city had survived the tests, the mysterious interference that had threatened to disrupt everything. And it had survived because of humans, because of creativity, teamwork, and ingenuity. Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Ethan, I think I understand now. You've never been just a mechanic. You've been preparing, quietly watching and learning. And now the city owes its safety to your foresight and human ingenuity." Ethan glanced up, a modest smile touching his lips. "It wasn't me alone," he said. "It was all of us. Humans working together, thinking differently, acting creatively. That's what made the difference." Mara Lynn, who had joined them in the workshop, nodded. "It's true. Every adjustment, every decision we made was guided by observation and understanding. Machines can be clever, but humans can improvise." Lyra leaned closer to Ethan, her eyes wide with a mixture of admiration and amazement. "I thought you were just fixing machines, keeping them running. I never realized you were orchestrating the defense of the entire city." Ethan shrugged modestly. "Sometimes the most important actions are quiet. Most people never see them, but when it matters, humans rise to the occasion." Outside, Nova Terra had returned to normal. Drones patrolled smoothly, traffic flowed without interruption, and energy grids were stable. Citizens went about their day, unaware of the intelligence that had tested them and the human creativity that had saved them. But inside the small workshop, Ethan and his team knew the truth. Humans had proven their ability to think beyond patterns, to create solutions where logic alone could not succeed. Lyra studied the workshop, taking in every detail: the carefully organized tools, the holographic projections, the quiet confidence of the man before her. "It's incredible," she said softly. "All this time you've been so calm, so collected, and yet you've been preparing the city for this challenge without anyone realizing it." Ethan smiled faintly. "That's the strength of patience and observation. Sometimes the best defense is unseen, quietly growing until it's needed. Humans have a way of solving problems that no machine or intelligence can fully anticipate." As the day progressed, the team began reviewing the city systems, ensuring no residual anomalies remained. Every drone, every hovercar, every energy flow was checked and reinforced. The subtle redundancies and creative solutions they had implemented ensured that even if the interference returned, the city could adapt immediately. Lyra watched Ethan as he worked. She had always admired his skill with machines, but now she admired his mind, the way he could see patterns, understand complex systems, and anticipate challenges in ways that no one else could. "Ethan," she said finally, "I think people will start to see the truth about humans. About what we're capable of, and about you." Ethan shook his head gently. "The city doesn't need to see me, they need to see themselves. Humans working together, thinking creatively, that's what matters, that's what will protect us in the future." Mara Lynn smiled. "You've already shown them, though. You've shown me, Lyra, and the others, and that's enough to start. People will learn from this quietly over time. They'll see that we can solve problems no one else could anticipate." Lyra looked thoughtful. "Then maybe it's time to teach them, to show young humans that creativity, teamwork, and observation are just as important as machines and technology. Ethan considered this. Yes, he said slowly. We can start small, teach young minds to think, to observe, to improvise. Humans have always been underestimated, but when we combine intelligence with creativity and teamwork, we can achieve incredible things. The team spent the next several hours discussing plans for the future. Workshops, mentorship programs, and educational initiatives were proposed, all designed to encourage the next generation to develop not only technical skills, but also critical thinking and adaptability. Lyra's face brightened. We can start a program right here in the city. Young humans, especially those interested in technology, can learn how to think beyond patterns to solve problems creatively. They can learn to use their minds like we did. Ethan nodded. Exactly, and it doesn't have to be flashy or complicated. Sometimes the simplest lessons have the deepest impact. Observation, analysis, teamwork, creativity, these are tools everyone can use. Mara Lynn smiled. And in doing so, we prepare the city for the future. Any challenge that comes next, humans will be ready. The evening sky turned a soft shade of pink and orange, reflecting in the glass towers of Nova Terra. Outside, citizens continued their routines, unaware of the silent war that had just taken place in their city. Hovercars glided through the streets, drones patrolled smoothly, and energy grids hummed reliably. Everything seemed ordinary, but inside Calder's repairs, humanity had proven its extraordinary capability. Lyra turned to Ethan. You weren't just a mechanic, she said again with a note of awe. You were the quiet guardian of the city, using human ingenuity to protect us all. Ethan smiled, a modest and gentle expression. Humans have always been capable of more than they realize. Sometimes it just takes a quiet moment, a chance to observe, and the right challenge to bring it out. I just happened to be here when it mattered. Lyra's eyes sparkled with inspiration. Then let's make sure it matters again. Let's make sure future generations understand what humans can do. Ethan nodded. We will, and they will remember not me, but the strength humans show when they work together, think creatively, and never give up. The team spent the next few weeks implementing the first steps of their educational initiatives. Workshops were organized, mentorship programs began, and young humans were encouraged to explore, experiment, and innovate. The city quietly adapted, strengthened not just by technology, but by human insight and imagination. As the weeks passed, Nova Terra returned fully to normal, and the mysterious interference faded completely. The city had been tested and had survived, not because of technology alone, but because of the human minds that guided it. One evening, Lyra and Ethan stood on the balcony of Calder's repairs, looking out over the glowing city. Hovercars moved in smooth arcs, drones glided through the skies, and lights sparkled like stars reflected in the glass towers. You know, Lyra said softly, most people will never know what happened here. They'll think it was just a minor technical glitch. Ethan nodded. They don't need to know. What matters is that humans understand themselves, that they know their creativity, adaptability, and teamwork are their greatest strengths. Lyra smiled. And now I know the truth about you, Ethan. You weren't just a mechanic. You were a teacher, a strategist, and a reminder of what humans can do when we rise to a challenge. Ethan looked at her, calm and modest. I'm not special. Humans are special, and when they come together, there's nothing they cannot overcome. The sun set behind the towers of Nova Terra, casting long, golden shadows across the streets. Inside Calder's repairs, the workshop was quiet, filled only with the hum of machines being tended and the soft chatter of humans sharing knowledge. Outside, the city thrived, unaware of the invisible challenge it had faced and the brilliance of human minds that had kept it safe. Lyra turned to Ethan once more. What happens now? Ethan smiled faintly. Now we prepare the next generation. We teach, we guide, and we ensure that humans are always ready. Because one day the challenge will return, and when it does, humans will shine even brighter. The city lights twinkled in the evening, a reminder that even in a world dominated by technology, it was human ingenuity, creativity, and teamwork that could protect, inspire, and lead the way. And so, in Nova Terra, humans quietly proved their extraordinary strength. Not through force, not through power, but through the brilliance of their minds, the courage of their hearts, and the unity of their spirit. Ethan returned to his workbench, Lyra beside him, both smiling quietly. The city was safe, the future was hopeful, and humanity's quiet strength had shown itself in a brilliant, undeniable way. For the first time, Lyra understood completely. Humans were capable of anything, and sometimes the most unassuming heroes were the ones who taught the world what it truly meant to shine.